Lucian hated this restaurant. It was too perfect. The soft jazz, the dimmed lights, the chandeliers that shimmered like gilt, it all felt like a stage. A performance. And tonight, he was the lead actor in a role he'd written for himself, a wealthy man in a wheelchair, meeting a stranger under false pretenses. The wheels beneath him weren't necessary. They were a shield, a test, and maybe, deep down, a punishment. He saw her the moment she stepped in. Sloane. She was even more stunning in real life. Long, curled hair cascading over a champagne satin dress, a quiet grace in the way she moved, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She scanned the room briefly, then found him. Her smile was calm, curious, not forced. And when she walked toward him, something in Lucian tightened. She didn't flinch at the chair, didn't slow down, didn't overcompensate. She just sat down across from him like it didn't matter. That scared him more than pity would have. "Lucian?" she asked gently. He nodded. "Sloane," he replied. Her name felt like silk in his mouth, warm and dangerous. They shook hands. Her touch was cool, steady. Too steady. She wasn't nervous. That made him nervous. They talked at first about meaningless things. Food, travel, how this place used to be a bank in the 1920s. Lucian let her speak, watched her lips move, but barely heard a word. He was waiting for her to ask why he was in a wheelchair. But she never did. She laughed once, touched her necklace when she spoke about her sister, leaned forward when she listened. It was like she didn't see the lie in front of her. Or worse, like she did, and didn't care. Then she said it. "Do you think people show who they really are on first dates?" Her voice was light, but her eyes were piercing. Lucian paused. "Only if they're brave enough," he said, his throat tightening. She tilted her head, studying him. Not with suspicion, but something closer to understanding. That was even more dangerous. As the waiter brought their food, Sloane stood up without a word, walked around the table, and adjusted Lucian's napkin on his lap. The gesture was soft, automatic, like she'd done it 1,000 times. No hesitation. No awkwardness. Like the chair meant nothing. Like he was just a man. Lucian froze. He smiled to hide it. But something cracked inside him. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not this fast. Not like this. Yet here she was, kind, open, blind to status or lies. And suddenly, he wasn't sure if the wheelchair was the disguise, or if the man sitting in it was. If this opening hit you hard, just wait for what's next. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Every detail in this story hides a deeper truth. Would you trust someone who tested you from the start? Tell us in the comments. Sloane didn't know what to expect from a man like Lucian. From the outside, he was composed, charming, even a bit reserved, but there was something behind his eyes that didn't match the rest of him. Something heavy. She'd seen that look before, during her nights volunteering at the rehab clinic downtown. Men who wore their pain in silence. Not physical pain. The kind that didn't bleed but never stopped aching. That was the kind of damage Lucian carried. And something about that made her not want to run, but to stay. Lucian, on the other hand, was unraveling. Internally. Quietly. He had rehearsed for this night. Practiced the lines, adjusted his posture, prepared for questions she never asked. Sloane's calmness disarmed him. Her grace felt too genuine to be real, like it had cost her something. And maybe that's what struck him the most, how she moved through the evening like someone who'd lost, loved, and lived far more than her age suggested. And he, with all his wealth, was the one hiding behind a lie. Halfway through dinner, the conversation took a turn. She asked about family. He hesitated, stabbed a piece of roasted carrot, and mumbled something vague about not being close. Her expression didn't change. She just nodded and said, "Me neither." That silence between them suddenly said more than any story could. He wanted to ask what she meant, what had happened to her, but he didn't. He was too busy wrestling with his own ghosts. Sloane looked down at her glass, tracing her finger along the rim. "Can I ask you something a little personal?" she said, not quite looking at him. Lucian's heart skipped. This was it. The moment. He nodded. "Do you ever feel like you're pretending to be someone, just to make it easier for people to accept you?" The question cut through him like a blade. He stared at her, stunned. She wasn't asking about the chair. She was asking about something deeper. About the act. About the mask. He almost confessed right then. Told her the truth, that the chair wasn't real, that he'd built a life full of success but couldn't bear to be seen as he truly was. That he'd used this lie to weed out the shallow ones. But Sloane wasn't shallow. And now, the weight of that truth sat like a brick on his chest. Instead, he smiled weakly and said, "More often than I'd like to admit." Outside, the sky had turned a bruised purple. And as she smiled back at him, soft, knowing, Lucian felt something shift. Not in the air. In him. Like the beginning of a collapse. And when her phone buzzed on the table, and her expression changed in an instant, tightening, darkening, he knew she was hiding something too. Sloane stared at the phone screen for a moment too long. Her smile faded, and though she tried to mask it with a sip of water, Lucian saw the change. A flicker of something. Fear, maybe? Regret? She locked the screen and placed the phone face down on the table, her hand trembling just slightly. It was the first time she'd looked unsure all evening, and it pulled at something deep in him, something protective, but also something suspicious. Lucian leaned back slowly, measuring her silence. "Bad news?" he asked, voice calm but cautious. She hesitated, then shook her head. "Just something I thought I was done with." That was all she offered. No name. No details. Her eyes were somewhere else now, across the room, lost in the flicker of candlelight. And for the first time, Lucian wondered if she had come here tonight with her own version of a test. They both fell into a quiet space between courses, the kind of silence that reveals more than words. Lucian studied her. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she rubbed her thumb against the edge of her napkin. He recognized the signs. She was carrying something, same as he was. And for the first time in a very long time, he didn't feel like the only actor in the room. Maybe they were both in costume. Both tired. Both afraid of being seen too clearly. When dessert arrived, she smiled again, but it was different now. Fragile. As if her walls had slipped for just a moment, and now she was scrambling to rebuild them. "You know," she said, slicing into the chocolate tart without tasting it, "I almost canceled this date. Twice." Lucian's fork paused in midair. "Why?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. Because people like them didn't go on dates. People like them didn't trust easily. And yet, here they were. Sloane shrugged, her voice quieter now. "Because I'm tired of pretending everything's fine. And I figured, if I showed up tonight, I'd have to either lie or tell a stranger the truth. And I wasn't sure which one scared me more." Her eyes met his then, steady, raw. It wasn't a confession. It was a dare. A mirror. And Lucian didn't know what terrified him more. The fact that she just said exactly what he was feeling, or that she might be more honest than he could ever be. The waiter came by with the check, but neither of them reached for it. They weren't finished. Not with the night. Not with each other. Outside, the wind picked up, and somewhere inside Lucian, a quiet panic stirred. Because for the first time, he wanted to stay. They walked out into the cool night air, the city lights reflecting off the wet pavement like old memories. Lucian wheeled beside her in silence, not because he had nothing to say, but because he was afraid of what might come out if he spoke. Sloane held her clutch tightly under one arm, her other hand brushing her necklace over and over again. It was a nervous tic she hadn't noticed herself doing all night. Lucian had. He noticed everything about her now. "My car's just around the corner," he said, as they reached the sidewalk. "I can call a ride if you'd rather." She looked at him, lips parted like she might say no, but then nodded. "Okay." Just that. No smile. No hesitation. Like she trusted him, or maybe just didn't have the strength to resist anymore. The wind caught a strand of her hair and she tucked it behind her ear as they moved together down the quiet street. Inside the car, the silence returned. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was full. Like both of them were standing on the edge of something neither could name. Sloane stared out the window, arms folded across her lap. "I used to live in this part of town," she said softly, almost to herself. "Couple years ago. With someone I don't talk about anymore." Lucian didn't push. He didn't ask questions. But her voice had cracked slightly at the word "someone," and he felt the bruise beneath it. He glanced at her hands. No ring. No tan line. Nothing that tied her to anyone else, yet something in the way she spoke of the past suggested chains you couldn't see. "What happened?" he asked carefully. Sloane didn't answer right away. Then, he left. Not all at once. In pieces. The kind of leaving that takes years and still surprises you when the door finally closes. Lucian swallowed hard. That kind of pain. He understood that too well. Maybe too well. They pulled up in front of her apartment building, an old brick structure with ivy climbing up the side. She hesitated before reaching for the door handle. "You don't have to walk me up," she said. But something in her voice sounded like she hoped he would. Lucian wanted to. God, he wanted to. But the chair, the lie, it paralyzed him more than he ever thought it could. "Maybe I should," he said, forcing a smile. "To make sure you don't disappear too." She stared at him then, for a long moment. And just as she opened her mouth to answer, her phone buzzed again. This time, she looked. Really looked. Her face went pale. Her hand trembled. And with her voice low and tight, she whispered, "I need to go." Then she stepped out of the car and walked away fast. Too fast for someone who claimed to be fine. Lucian didn't follow. He couldn't. He just watched. And for the first time, he wondered if he'd just watched the truth walk out of his life. Lucian didn't sleep that night. He sat in the dark corner of his penthouse, still dressed, tie loosened, drink untouched on the table. The city stretched out below him like a lie too big to fix. Her last words echoed over and over in his mind. "I need to go." No explanation. No apology. Just urgency and something close to fear. He'd replayed her expression 100 times in his head. Something had shaken her. Something real. And it made his lie feel even uglier. The chair sat across the room, empty now. He stared at it like it was a ghost. At first, the act had felt clever. Strategic. A way to protect himself from gold diggers, from shallow women who'd only ever seen the money. But with Sloane, the chair had turned into a curse. He'd wanted her to love past it, to see him. But what if she had? What if she did, and he ruined it before she even got the chance to choose? He picked up his phone. No new messages. He thought about calling her. Just asking if she was okay. But what would he say? "Hey, the guy who lied to you about being disabled just wants to make sure the mysterious phone call that made you panic didn't kill your night." No, he couldn't do it. He wasn't ready. Not to confess. Not to lose her. He was paralyzed again, only this time it wasn't a chair that held him still. It was fear. At 2:37 a.m., he went back to the chair. Sat in it. rolled across the room. It felt heavier than ever, like it knew, like it was judging him. The man in the mirror across the window didn't look noble or smart or guarded. He looked broken, a coward hiding behind a performance. And the woman who had seen him without ever asking for explanations, she was running from something real, and he had no idea what it was. The next morning, he stood in the elevator, buttoning his coat, breathing through the nausea in his chest. He was going to find her, not to demand answers, but to give one. Maybe for the first time in years. He was tired of pretending, of staging scenes and hoping someone would love the mask. Sloane deserved the truth, even if it shattered whatever chance they had left. He drove across town in silence, the city still half asleep. When he pulled up in front of her building, he saw it immediately. Her car, door slightly ajar. And on the ground beside it, her phone, cracked, screen flickering, abandoned. Something in him dropped. This wasn't about awkward feelings anymore. This was danger. Real danger. And Lucian knew, in that instant, that whatever Sloane had been running from, had finally caught up. What do you think Sloane was running from? Was it something from her past? Or someone? Drop your theories in the comments. Lucian needs answers, and so do we. Lucian's heart pounded as he stepped out of the car. The cracked phone on the ground wasn't just a sign of urgency. It was wrong. Too wrong. Sloane didn't seem like the type to drop anything, let alone leave her car door open in the middle of the night. He crouched slowly, picked up the phone, and stared at the shattered screen as if it might still tell him something. But the screen stayed dark, just like everything else around him. He buzzed the intercom. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. A tight knot formed in his chest as he pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. The lobby was empty, dimly lit, quiet in a way that made everything feel abandoned. He pressed the elevator button, then changed his mind and took the stairs. His instincts were screaming. Every step echoed like a countdown. He didn't even know her apartment number. But somehow, he found it. Her name was scribbled faintly on the mailbox slot, S. Hart. He knocked once. Twice. Sloane. His voice cracked. No answer. He tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was. He leaned his head against the door for a moment, breathing shallow. What was he doing? Breaking into a woman's apartment because she didn't text him back? No. This wasn't paranoia. This was something else. Something real. He looked around, desperate, until he noticed an elderly woman coming out of the door across the hall. She left in a hurry, the woman said, surprising him. Looked scared. Dropped her keys. Didn't even notice. Lucian's hands shook as he picked up the small set of keys the woman pointed to. Still on the floor. Still cold. He opened Sloane's apartment door slowly, expecting, he didn't know what. But the place was still. Too still. As if someone had paused time. A mug on the counter, half full. A jacket on the couch. Her scent still lingered in the air, something soft and floral that made his chest tighten. He walked through the small apartment like a ghost retracing a stranger's life. On her dresser, he found a photo. Sloane, much younger, standing beside a man. Same hair. Same smile. But something in her eyes was different. He flipped it over. One line was scrawled in blue ink, Sloane and Eli, before everything fell apart. The name meant nothing to Lucian. Yet the way her arm clung to the man's waist told him this Eli wasn't some casual memory. He was history. And maybe danger. Suddenly, behind him, a noise. Not from the hallway. From the back room. Faint. Quick. Like a footstep on carpet. Lucian turned slowly, eyes wide. He wasn't alone. And whoever else was in that apartment wasn't supposed to be. Lucian froze. The sound had come from the bedroom, Just one soft, deliberate step, like someone trying not to be heard. He stayed perfectly still, ears ringing, pulse racing. The air around him thickened. This wasn't imagination. Someone was in there. And every instinct he had screamed at him to leave, but he couldn't, not when Sloane was missing. Not when every inch of his gut told him this wasn't just bad timing or overreaction. Something was deeply wrong. Slowly, he stepped toward the doorway, avoiding the creak in the floorboards. His reflection in the hallway mirror startled him. Pale, tense, not the man who had once controlled boardrooms and brokered million-dollar deals. He looked like someone younger, more desperate. He reached for the bedroom door and nudged it open with the side of his hand. The room was dim, the curtains drawn. A shadow moved behind the dresser, then stopped. Lucian didn't speak. His mouth was dry. He could barely breathe. But then, the shadow stepped forward. A man, maybe mid-30s. Jeans, black hoodie. His face was partially hidden by the low light, but the eyes were sharp, cold. Not surprised to see Lucian, almost like he expected him. For a second, neither moved. Then the man smiled. Not a friendly smile. Something darker. "You shouldn't be here," he said calmly, like it was a warning or a sentence. Lucian's voice came out rough. "Where is she?" No answer. The man tilted his head, studying him. "Funny," he said. "She said the same thing about you." Lucian's stomach turned. That line, casual, cruel, cut through the confusion and straight into panic. He stepped back. The man didn't follow. Just stood there, like a shadow waiting to be fed. "You really don't know, do you?" the man added. "How deep this goes. What she's capable of." Something about those words snapped Lucian back into control. "I don't care who you are," he said. "I just want to find her." The man's expression didn't change, but his tone sharpened. "Then stop playing hero. You're not built for this kind of truth." With that, he turned and walked toward the window, opened it, and disappeared into the night without a sound. Lucian rushed to the glass, but the alley below was empty. He stood there for a moment, trying to catch his breath, trying to steady the chaos spinning in his head. Who was that man? How did he know Sloane? Why did he speak like Lucian was the one intruding on something old, something dangerous? Then, from the nightstand, a vibration. Her second phone. The one she never used in front of him. A single message flashed on the screen. "Don't trust him. He's not who he says he is." Lucian stared at the message, his hand trembling as he held the burner phone. "Don't trust him. He's not who he says he is." The words echoed louder than the silence in the apartment. His heart thudded in his ears as if trying to drown out the voice in his mind asking the question he'd been avoiding. Who the hell was she talking about? Was the warning about the man who just vanished out the window, or was it about him? He sat on the edge of her bed, head in his hands, trying to piece it all together. Every smile she gave him, every silence between words, the way she looked at him like she knew something, like she'd seen this version of him before. And maybe she had. Maybe the lie he thought he'd so cleverly crafted was already undone. Maybe he'd never fooled her at all. And now, maybe he was the one being played. That thought cut deep, deeper than he wanted to admit. Because if Sloane had been pretending too, then what did that make them? Two strangers clinging to a moment that never really existed? Or two broken people trying to find something real in the only way they knew how, by hiding? He reached for the photograph again. Her and Eli, smiling, younger. And suddenly it hit him. He had no idea who Eli was, but whoever that man was, he never truly left. Lucian opened the phone again. No password. Just a list of messages, all from one number. No name. Some recent, others months old. Did you tell him? He deserves to know the truth. You promised me, Sloane. Each one felt like a punch. She had been hiding from something or someone. And if that man from earlier was Eli, then this wasn't just about a breakup. This was about fear, about control, about something darker. And Lucian, with all his rehearsed lies and self-pity, had walked into the middle of it without even realizing. Then he saw it. A voicemail, new, unopened, from the same number. His thumb hovered over the play button, hesitation building in his chest like a flood behind a dam. He wanted answers, but he wasn't sure he was ready for them. Still, he tapped. The voice on the recording was Sloane's. Breathless, quiet, afraid. Lucian, if you're hearing this, something went wrong. I never meant for you to get pulled into this. Please, just walk away, before he finds out who you really are. Lucian sat frozen, the phone still in his hand, her voice replaying again and again in his mind. Before he finds out who you really are. Not who she was, who he was. And that changed everything. Every second of doubt twisted tighter. What did she know? How long had she known? How deep did this go? He felt like he was spiraling, falling into some version of himself he didn't recognize anymore. Or maybe a version she already saw coming. He stood and looked around her apartment like it could answer him. The place felt colder now, haunted, as if she'd never lived here at all. Just echoes and perfume and lies stitched between photographs and throw pillows. And yet, despite everything, he didn't feel anger. He felt fear. Fear that something had already happened to her. That someone had reached her before he could. Or worse, that he was the reason someone did. Walking away would be easy. Just leave the phone. Leave the memories. Return to the penthouse. The suit. The silence. The version of himself that didn't feel anything. But it was too late for that. Sloane had seen through him. And in some strange, brutal way, she had cared anyway. Not in spite of the lie. Because of it. She knew something he didn't know yet, something about himself. And now he couldn't walk away without finding out what that was. He searched the phone again. No new messages. But one stood out, older, unread. A text she never opened. Meet me where it started. One last time. No location. No signature. But Lucian knew. Somehow he just knew. She'd told him once, during dinner, about a place she used to go when she needed to disappear. There's this old greenhouse outside the city, she'd said. Nobody ever goes there anymore. It's quiet. Forgotten. Maybe it wasn't just a story. Maybe it was a clue. The drive was long. His hands gripped the wheel too tight. The wind howled against the windshield like it was warning him to turn back. But Lucian had already made his decision. No more lies. No more pretending. If this was the end, he'd walk into it knowing he didn't run from it. The truth, whatever it was, deserved to be faced. As the gravel cracked beneath his tires and the greenhouse appeared in the distance like a skeleton from another life, he saw her, Sloane, standing alone beneath the moonlight, pale, still, waiting. But when she turned to face him, her eyes weren't just afraid. They were full of something else entirely. Guilt. Lucian stepped out of the car slowly, his legs numb, not from fear, but from everything that had finally caught up with him. Sloane didn't move. She just stood there, arms crossed over her chest, her breath visible in the cold night air. The old greenhouse loomed behind her like a forgotten memory, glass cracked, metal rusted. It was the perfect place for endings. Or maybe for the truth to finally breathe. "You found me," she said quietly. No surprise in her voice. Just resignation. Lucian nodded. I had to. He paused, eyes searching hers. You left your phone. I thought. That something happened to me? She interrupted, a faint smile breaking through. It did. Just not tonight. The words hit harder than any threat. He waited, unsure if he should step closer, unsure if he even had the right. She looked at him then, not like a woman who feared a man, but like someone staring into a mirror. I knew about the chair, Lucian, she said. The first time I saw you, I knew. He blinked, stunned. Why didn't you say anything? Because, she whispered, I was lying too. And if I exposed you, I'd have to admit who I really was. A silence settled between them. Heavy. Sacred. And for the first time, they weren't acting anymore. I was engaged, she confessed, to Eli. Years ago. He hurt me in ways I never told anyone. When I left him, I took something he thought belonged to him. My life. My peace. He's been trying to take it back ever since. Lucian listened, his heart sinking with every word. The man in her apartment, the messages, everything made sense now. And me? He asked, voice breaking. Was I just caught in the middle? Sloane shook her head, tears in her eyes. No. You were the only thing that felt real in years. Even your lie was more honest than most truths I've heard. He walked toward her, slowly. She didn't step back. I don't know who I am without the lie, he said. But I'm done with it. You showed me what it costs to keep hiding. And I don't want to pay that price anymore. She reached for his hand. And this time, it wasn't out of sympathy. It was connection. Worn, scarred, but alive. In the quiet of the greenhouse ruins, two people, who had spent too long pretending, finally stood without armor. Not perfect, not healed, but free. If you've ever hidden a part of yourself just to be accepted, then you understand what this story was really about. If it touched you, even just a little, leave a like. It might seem small, but it means everything to us. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next stories. Each one is crafted to draw you in, stir something deep, and maybe remind you of someone you thought you'd forgotten.